Do I Love, Chapter 4. We stayed at Bam's house for 3 days. We didn't talk much, slept mostly. On the third day, we decided it was time to go home. Brenda went to her dorm and Max went back to his apartment. Alice and I went to my parents to pick up our baby we named Gabriel. As we walked into my parents' home, my dad heard the door open and rushed to it and expressed that he was glad we were home. Gabriel missed you, he said. We told him we went out on vacation, that it was what the spaceman said to say. Picked up Gabriel and placed her in a car seat and off we went back home. Alice and I both had work in the morning, so we went to bed early. We did not talk much, but Alice mentioned she loved the city of Orion. A couple of days went by and everything was as normal as always, but there were the occasional strange things that would happen. But the strangest thing was nobody seemed to notice the giant city outside of our time domain. I do not even seem to notice it as well now that I'm back on the Earth. As time went forward, we did not talk much about our adventure, but inwardly, I did. My major concern was the rest of society. Did they know about Orion? When my friends and I talked about the city, we thought that it could have been a hallucination or a foreign creature playing a cruel trick on us. In the end, we concluded we could not let our experiences get in the way of real life. For example, friends, children, our parents, or close loved ones. We could not abandon the Earth to pretend the city was out there. Our home was this planet, and these spacemen seemed to be a threat. In the city, they seemed to have power to control our minds, but once broken free, we feared what would happen if these spacemen did take over our planet. Alice did not see it that way. She thought the city gave us Gabriel, that the city could be a good thing for evolving humans. Because Alice and I had some of the other things no could figure it out, I decided to take a closer look at the Earth, maybe even check with my parents to see what they knew about alternative realities. After all, we had a year before the spaceman would be back. Bam and I sat in his room gazing at the portal he had made. He understood that I wanted more information about the Earth. He said, "Before you look at anything or study anything, you should take a good close look at my dog. She's smart." Brendon said, "As well as you should talk to my parents because they do out-of-this-world type things that you can now relate to." "Brendon, if your family is odd, then why did you not come on the adventure with us?" I asked. Brendon said, "My parents want to take me to the place you went to, but their own way." I told them about what I saw in Bam's bedroom, and they thought it was an average thing. Brendon was awfully close to his parents and did a lot of things together, even the strange and out-of-this-world type things. One day, while Alice was at work and I was watching the baby, I took the baby to Bam's place. He kept mentioning something about his dog. I was curious about what he was saying. Gabriel needed to spend some time out of the house as well. It was a pleasant summer's day. As we drove through the town, I could smell food in the air. People were busy everywhere. We got to Bam's and I gave a friendly knock and mentioned we were there for the dog. He replied, "Come on in." As soon as I opened the door, his dog Lacey ran up to us and started greeting us with some friendly barks. Bam said, "I think she knew you were coming." Lacey quickly ran up to a large stash of toys and grabbed her favorite one and brought it to me. It was a tennis ball. I thought she wanted me to throw it, so I did. Lacey, in response, ran after it and put it in her mouth and brought it back to me. Bam said, "She's a smart girl." I said, "What do you mean?" "You might not think that a dog has a spirit or emotions, but Lacey does. That's why she's playing with you, because it makes her happy. Pretend you're going to throw your baby on the floor," Bam said. Grabbed Gabriel and pretended to throw her, and Lacey suddenly responded with a growl as if to warn me not to. Bam said, "If the city of Orion is a good city, it will make Lacey happy." My thought was, if Lacey was alive, would she get a house in the city like they offered us? I said, "I don't think Lacey's alive, but one thing that would utterly convince me that she is to paint an intelligent picture." Bam quickly got some paint and some paintbrushes and brought them to Lacey. "Paint Daddy," Bam said. Lacey slowly painted a picture of what looked like a man. I could not believe it. Was I living a shallow life, or did the surrounding world change very quickly? I began to fear that some of my past mistakes were a little worse than I made them to be. "Not everyone knows about this," Bam said. I never realized it, but Bam's dog Lacey was alive. I never thought outside of my world to consider what he was talking about when he mentioned Lacey. and now wonder who created her, who programmed her. Where did she come from? Bam said he was the father, but I brushed that off a long time ago. I said, Bam, I reconsider that you might have made sense all those times I didn't listen to you. Bam must have had ties to the city if I reconsider all the strange things he told me. Bam, did the dog come from the city of Orion? I asked. If it did, it was me in the future, and I would have sent it back through some sort of portal in the now, but then I would have to wonder, how do I live in the future without my best friend? Bam answered. The future, I thought. Now that I had this talk with Bam, I feel they have a greater knowledge. Maybe the spacemen were from the future. Maybe they were sent here with good intentions. If they could travel through time, then they must have been watching us our whole lives. And maybe it was us living in the future who was watching us. Maybe the spacemen were sent here to give us the full reality of what we were to do on Earth. What if Bam was telling the truth? What if Bam created Lacey and sent her here through a time machine? Later that day, Bam and I decided to go out and get something to eat, and afterwards we go to the beach. We took Lacey with us. First stop was a fast food joint. I ordered a hamburger and Bam got pizza. As soon as Bam got his pizza, he asked Lacey if she wanted some. Lacey replied with a friendly bark. I realized Lacey was listening to him. She was just as alive as we were. Now I knew why Bam always referred to his dog whenever I talked about something paranormal, because there's nothing stranger than a dog who walks outside with shoes, but who listens and responds. Why did I not see it sooner? I think it was because I was so involved in how technology worked that I never considered how animals work. After lunch at the fast food joint and went to the beach, I was eager to go. It was a hot day, and a quick dip in the water would be nice. As I went into the water, Bam decided to play fetch with Lacey. Lacey ran back and forth, returning the stick. I could not swim long because I had to watch Gabriel, and not only watch her, but make sure she did not get overheated. It's too hot of a day to be out here, I thought as I got out of the water. I need to go home. Bam, we need to get back home because Gabriel's not looking so good. I could not wait to get back to my air-conditioned apartment. Alice slowly opened the door to our apartment. Hi, honey, she said. Hi, I replied. How was your day, she asked. I didn't tell her about my day. Bam and I went to the beach, and I studied his dog for the sake of Orion. I mentioned that the dog was smart, and concluded that in the ancient light of the earth we cannot see everything. She seemed to pretend to know what I was talking about, but I knew she did not. I was trying to say she was smart, like City of Orion smart enough to have her own house within the city, as a creature equal to humans, but if I said that, I would have thought she would think I lost my mind. I had to discover the truth about the earth. Why did we all get along in the city, but now think of it as some sort of hallucination? I could no longer convince any of my friends that living in the city was a good thing. They were all trying to make money to sustain their hardships on earth. Plus, I feared the creatures out there beyond the night sky. I continued battling within myself to tell myself it would all be alright. Yet they are not taking over, that most likely they won't be back next year, or at least I began to hope they would not be. I knew that one of my main concerns with the city was I had to vote it in. I had to wonder if I voted in the city, would my family be at risk? Then a thought came to my mind. What if they had already known about the city and voted it in themselves? Then another thought popped into my head. What if they were from the future? I never considered these things before, and I think it was due to the light of the past. The light of the past dominated the earth. I had to question some of my family, but my family and I rarely talk about such things, so it would be a challenge. I went to my parents. I said, Mom, Dad, what do you honestly think about all the strange things that have happened over the past couple of years? Things have been appearing out of thin air. Mom said, the force appeared out of thin air. You don't question that. People in this world have a variety of different opinions when it comes to the question. Some people believe the force was put here by ancient ancestors. Some think it was a powerful god. Some think it was evolution. In anger, I said, who do you think put it here? Dad said, legend has it that our dead ancestors kept living, and the life that they live is through the forest, so maybe the strange things you see are our ancestors coming back and forth from the earth. I was excited to hear that. Soon after the talk with my parents, I jumped into my car and went home. On the way back to my apartment, I had some powerful thoughts. First thought was, who put the force there? I never concluded the forest. I suppose that the light of the past never allowed me to fully see the forest in the light of the future. Maybe it was our ancestors. Suddenly I yelled I got it. Our ancestors live in the city and come back and forth taking care of the forest. But how could they physically make the forest? The spacemen said that they were the ones controlling material things through words. Maybe the words they type are the things controlling the forest. Maybe they control the positive and the negative of the force from within the city. I was excited to think these thoughts and quickly got home. Upon arriving, I noticed Alice cooking supper. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" she asked. "I went to my parents' house to study the nature of things," I said. "Well, what's the nature of things?" she replied. "In uncertainty," I replied. They made a good point about my question. They might have considered our ancient ancestors to be the ones helping us out. I think they thought they might be helping us out, and they're doing this from within the city. Honey, I have a confession to make. Before we together went to the city, I went there, and you were there, but not in this life. In other words, you were from the future. You were in a large building, and you said you created Gabriel and put her within me, or rather in my world, per se, and wanted both of us to raise it. The ancient ancestors that your parents might be talking about might be living on the earth right now," she said. I could not believe what she just said. I ran over to her and kissed her and told her that I loved her. That night I lay next to her wondering how in the future I've created a baby, and what would it be like to meet my future self. I drifted off to sleep and had a dream. I saw me working hard within a house that resided in the city of Orion. I could see me typing what looked like a computer program. My future self looked at me and explained that I made Gabriel, that I spent much time on her in the future as a daughter. I was told to keep it a secret, just like Alice had told myself I would not tell a soul. The next morning I woke up. Alice had already gotten up and went to work. As I walked into the kitchen, I smiled to myself, knowing I had a daughter. I was happy. I sat down at the kitchen table. I noticed a note. It was from Alice. She wrote, "Darling, last night I had a dream. I dreamt that we were living in the city, and we had many children. We had all these children through patience and love. We got permission from the city to create living people. We live together and are wealthy. We live in a rich mansion. That was what was created through wavelengths of all sorts. I love you and want us to be together. But I want your heart to be in this, so do more research and discover yourself and what the light has done for you." I loved that letter. I kept it with me for the longest time. Although the letter gave me comfort, I could feel my humanity, and I would not express the deep emotions within my heart. I had to get more answers. I stuffed the letter in my pocket, walked out the door, got in my car, and went to work. My job at the paper mill was to put glue on the paper. The glue held the paper fibers together. For the past few months, I worked alongside of a young man named Mike. All the employees called him Far Out Mike. I think it was because he acted like he was from another planet. On this day, he started a conversation. "You have a glow about you today," he said. "I love my wife and child," I replied. "Being in love," he said, as thoughts moved through his mind. "Love comes from being home. Home makes you love. I don't love here only when I'm home." "Mike, you live out of your van," I replied. "That's not my home," he said. They were right. I thought he could be from another planet, but I was still wondering how he understood love. Later that evening, as I was driving home from work, I started thinking about Far Out Mike. What if he were from another planet? I could not think about it at work. I was too busy. I should have asked him. Wonder what he would say. Wonder if he knew anything about Orion. In a hurry, I turned the car around and drove back to the paper mill. I was hoping Mike had not left yet. Pulled in the driveway and noticed Mike's van still parked in the parking lot of the paper mill. He walked out the front doors. I opened my door and said, "Mike." "Yeah," he replied. "Earlier we talked about love. I wonder, have you ever had a home outside of this planet?" He laughed and said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Nobody does, but my home is amongst the dead." "The dead? How's there any love amongst the dead?" I asked. "The dead is another word for others that are not from this earth," he replied, and continued speaking. "This world is a virtual world, sort of like a video game." "I'm having a hard time believing that," I said. "If you ever do understand that, you will find home with love attached," he said as he opened the door to his van and drove off. I was glad he did. I had to get home before Alice started worrying. She tended to do that. As I drove home, I kept thinking about Alice and her love for me, as well as my love for her. I recalled the letter and remembered I had to dig deep into my heart because I greatly feared this place. In other words, the earth would be the last place I would see her. Strange, I thought. I love her, but tend to believe we will be split up by leaving the earth. Could not let that happen. In my mind, I was weak, and most of the time I just went with the flow with little resistance. But then I reconsidered my situation and knew I needed to invest more time in my studies. Alice, as I said as I opened the fridge and grabbed a snack, was for supper. I waited all day hoping she was cooking pea soup. She made a great pea soup. It warmed me up on the inside and reminded me of cold winter days with my parents. Pea soup's on the stove, she graciously said. I grabbed a bowl of it, went to the living room and started explaining that I felt like I'd been waiting for her my whole life, and the day finally came that I found her. She said, I love you. And every time I look into our child, it reminds me of you, and I feel like the luckiest woman alive. I want to be with you. I then noticed we were not as close to each other as we could be. I think it was due to all the unanswered questions. I tried to explain to her that my heart was rooted in love for her. That night we laid in bed trying hard to get close to one another. We did the most intimate of things. We talked long into the night. We played like children, but I still felt that we were lying about our relationship. Only when I mentioned Gabriel did I feel close enough. I knew that if the dream of the future me was true, then I needed a bond of love to hold us together. The next morning, I happily watched her brush her hair, brush her teeth, grab her cookies, and go to work. She told me that night before that the job at this pet store was not paying enough, and she wanted to go back to school. She wanted to study animals. Alice loved animals. She has a special bond with them. When she walks into a pet store, the animals calm down as they know she's helping them. Her boss thinks she would make a great animal doctor. Alice loved animals. I got promoted at the paper mill and did not have to work as much. That meant more time with Gabriel. Alice could go to school if she wanted to, but I knew that would mean a lot of student loans. But everything requires money, so I encouraged her to go. Shortly after Gabriel turned 1 year of age, Alice started Sale University. She went there to study animals. The school was very expensive, $50,000 for a bachelor's degree in animal communications. Alice was not concerned. She was sure we could pay it back. It was fall when she started. All the leaves in Vermont were colored and were falling to the ground. I drove Alice to the first day of school. Once at school, Alice got out of her car. I ran around to the front side of her car to wish her luck with a kiss. Fall breeze did the same. She grabbed her bag and told me she would be done around 8. As I drove back to her apartment, I could still see Alice's brown and purple highlighted hair blowing in the wind, her brown eyes looking into mine. I would from time to time get lost in her eyes, lost in her soul, feeling great love for her. I hoped she had the same feelings for me. I loved Alice, but I could not help thinking that we were being fake. Were we hiding our deepest secrets? Did she know that I had a strong sense of doubt and worry? The only time I did not fear the doubt was when I looked in her eyes. I wondered if she could see it in my eyes. I pulled Gabriel out of her car seat and said, "Sweetie, we're home." Gabriel giggled. A few months after Alice started Sale University, she withdrew herself from the awfully expensive school. I asked her what was wrong. She would insist everything was fine, but everything was not fine. She now just lay in bed. She had been there for 2 weeks. She even told the boss she was sick. I don't think she knew why she was acting that way. I knew that we owed a lot of money to the school and it was going to be tough to pay it back, but I would not mention my concern, hoping not to crush Alice, and like her, I sort of did the same thing, insisting everything would be fine. Once Alice got out of bed and went back to work, her boss allowed her to return to work. Life became normal again, and she opened up her personal reality with me. This earth of this life is flawed, she started saying. I think that's why I didn't finish school, because of the ultimate problem, and that's the problem. Besides, I didn't fit in with the rest of the people. They're not where I want to be when I look at the big picture. I was not sick when I lay in bed, protecting myself from the fake world, perhaps even a little depressed, although I don't believe such exists. She then kissed me and said, "I will have to try that again." Afterwards, she began working and going about life normally.